Hey folks, Rachel here with Newport Beach Trauma Therapy, and I want to talk a little bit about Valentine's Day. Even before we end the holiday season, we start to see candy hearts and bears and all the promotions in the stores getting us geared up for February 14th. We all know in our hearts that it is a manufactured holiday, and yet we still get roped into it. It still brings us a little bit of expectation. So if we're in relationship, we start to think that we have to buy a gift or we have to show up in a certain way. And sometimes that's fun, but oftentimes our expectations get disappointed when our partner doesn't measure up, right? So there's that. And then it really highlights if we don't have a partner. And I know we all say it doesn't matter and we do these things with friends, and you are correct. It doesn't. But somewhere, a lot of us take that on and we start to feel like maybe we're missing out on something. So what I see in my private practice repeatedly is this desire for love and connection. It really doesn't matter whether they're coming to me for relationship issues or whether they're in my office because they want to work on something about work or self-exploration. But the underlying theme, the thing that always comes up, is this desire to be connected to somebody, to feel seen and heard and have validation. What I find is people that are missing that, they start to think about, there's this arbitrary timeline, right? Am I supposed to be in a relationship? What do people think if I'm not in a relationship? What is wrong with me if I'm not in a relationship? There's this fear of being alone. And there's this overlying pressure that folks feel about what it means to be in a relationship or to not be in a relationship, and how they decide it makes meaning about who they are even at the core. So part of this desire for connection is just human nature. It's biological. We're wired that way. We want to be in relationship with other people, feel love and connection. But part of it comes from outside forces, right? So it's an interesting statistic that millennials are 177% more likely to feel the need to be in a relationship or a partnership than prior generations. A lot of it is the same reasons everybody else was. This idea of social conformity, parental rules, religion, gender, culture. But additionally, these guys have the added pressure of social media, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. All of these places are relationships that they see that look perfect and idealized. And so they have additional pressures in that regard. So how do these ideas come into fruition? A lot of it's rooted in myths that we have been passing down from generation to generation. The first one kind of lies in this idea that we have a soulmate out there. I hate to break it to folks. I know some people really hang their hat on the idea that there's this other half of them and there's this perfect person out there, but there's not. It's a myth that is rooted in Greek mythology and really has no truth or bearing. Now, while that may be disappointing for some, the good news is it means that there's more than just one person in that sea of a world out there for you. And sometimes timing is what matters more than anything. The second thing that gets in our way is this idea that love is a feeling, that we are going to feel perpetually happy, connected, that it's going to magically come down from the skies and we're going to know that this person is for us. Is that a feeling that sometimes we experience, this all-encompassing love and idealization of the other person? Sure, but it's not love. It's not sustainable. No feeling is sustainable forever. So love has got to be more than just a feeling. It's actually often a choice. If you were going to interview folks that have been together for 10, 20, 30 years in happy, fulfilling relationships, I can almost guarantee that none of them will say, I felt that euphoric love every second I was with them. Sometimes they're not going to like them. Sometimes they're going to be angry. Sometimes they're going to need a break. Love is almost, when we have that idea of it, it's just infatuation. We really need to get to the nitty-gritty to know if we love that person actually. Okay. So another thing that sometimes gets in our way is this idea, or this myth that comes to mind, is this idea that only beautiful people find the perfect partner or have happy marriages or happy relationships. Quite frankly, if that were true, all the beautiful people in the world would be married, and these would be people that were beautiful by some arbitrary standard. If you look around, lots of people of lots of different types and looks are in relationships that are fulfilling and that they really enjoy with partners that they like and love. The other thing to look at and note is that beauty is subjective, just like art is. So your standard of beauty may not be your neighbor's or may not be somebody else's. So really, to not let that get in your way or be a fear when you think about relationships is important. The next thing that kind of gets in our way, or myth that we hear, is this idea that people that are married are happy. If that were true, there wouldn't be divorce. Marriage is not going to fulfill you. Marriage is not going to be the thing that defines you. I will say, if you pick the wrong person, it can make you unhappy. But in general, that's not the fix-all. You are not a complete person just because you're in a partnership. And then the other myth that we get hung up with, I think a lot of times we hear it from other folks in our lives or our grandparents, is that you can't have a partnership and a career, that one of those things need to take a priority. And if you're focused on your career, you don't have any time to be in a relationship with somebody. But that's not true. Again, I invite you to look around your community, your workplace, the world stage, and you'll find lots of people that are really successful and powerful, and they're in relationships and they work. So if you want a relationship, right, and you keep missing, you're not finding it, let's look at what could be getting in the way, what could be holding you back. One of the first things I find that people are still hung up or getting over their past relationship. And so you can't really move forward until you've healed your heart and given yourself time and space to kind of mourn the passage of that relationship. Now, does that mean that you have to sit at home alone night after night and not do anything and not even explore the possibility? Of course not. It does mean that when you go into these situations, if you decide to go on a date or you're out there in the world looking around, don't put too much pressure on it. Know that that person's not going to be your prior partner, that you're not really in a space where you're ready to open your heart yet, but you are looking to just kind of be out there in the world and enjoy your time with other people and meet new people. I run into people who have these lists, right? They've got lists of what they want their partner to have. This is the goal that makes a person perfect, that they will have blonde hair or brown hair, that they will be 6 foot or 5 foot, that they will do all of these, they will have all these qualities, they will text a certain number of times a day, they will call, they have a strategy around gift giving or Christmases or birthdays. And while all of that's kind of important, what you really want to look at is, do their values align, and toss the list aside. I find that when we make a list, it's almost constricting. You might run into somebody who has things you didn't even dream of that you love that aren't on that list and never would have been on that list because you couldn't imagine them. But here they are. So if you are rigid and you're sticking to a list, you might miss some great opportunities. Another thing that happens is people attract partners or potential partners that are emotionally unavailable. So they'll show up for a period of time, but they're either in another relationship, or they're not ready to commit, or they've got some work to do of their own, and they're just not going to be ready for you while you're ready for them. And so you end up frustrated and lonely and wondering what is wrong. The other thing that I find that people run into is that they're not ready to be in a relationship. Another thing that gets in the way of people finding their partner or relationship is they avoid it, quite frankly. They say that they want it, they go on the dates, they go through all the motions, but they're not vulnerable, they're not ready to be open, they're not ready to put in the time it takes to be a partner. So there's something about where they are that means they're just not ready to be in a committed relationship. And if that's happening to you, kind of pay attention to it. If you're holding back, check it. Are you holding back because you're scared of rejection, or you're just not ready to do this right now? One last thing that gets in the way of looking for a relationship or being in a relationship when people think that they want to is they don't look, right? People get nervous about going on apps. If that's the way you want to go about it, do it. But that's not the only way to find partners. Part of the idea is just the energy you put out there, keeping your space open and looking around, even telling friends, coworkers, this is a part of my life that might be missing. So if you know of anybody, I'd be happy to be introduced. So how do you know if you're ready? That's one of the keys. The first thing that I'm going to tell you, and you're going to hate, is love yourself. I know it's cliche, but really loving and accepting yourself for where you are is critical. Think about this. Would you really want to attract a person that wasn't comfortable with who they were? The energy attracts like energy. So that's some of the hard work we have to do, is kind of getting to accept ourselves before we're really ready for a relationship. Another thing to look for is, are you able to communicate? Can you communicate your needs? Are you comfortable doing that? Are you comfortable letting people know what you expect from them? And then conflict, right? Nobody loves conflict, but how comfortable are you in conflict? Are you able to withstand arguments, debates, strategizing about how you want to operate as a couple? Are you able to do that without getting emotionally dysregulated? If their partner says something that maybe scares you, can you handle that? Can you deal with it? Can you communicate what's going on for you? These are really key components to knowing you're in a healthy spot and you can communicate what you want and you're ready for a relationship. Also, another way to know that you're ready for a relationship is, are you pushing them away? If you're not looking for flaws, you're not trying to change them, that means you're at a space where you're ready to bring somebody else into your life. And then lastly, are you afraid to be alone? If you're comfortable spending time alone, doing things alone, being by yourself, and that other person isn't there just to complete you or to make you feel less lonely, then odds are, if the timing is right and you're ready to look for a real and meaningful relationship. Whether you're ready for a relationship or not ready for a relationship, whether you're still trying to untangle some of those myths or peer pressures that bind you to it, I suggest you take some time, you reflect on it, you think about what's right for you. If you're looking for a relationship just because you think you're supposed to and there's a timeline, take a pause, give yourself a break, take a vacation from wanting to be in a relationship and just enjoy yourself or enjoy life. And if you really are at a point where you're ready to invite somebody else into your life and you want that significant other, then look around, be open, don't limit yourself, explore possibilities, enjoy activities out there, get involved in a group that maybe has a like-minded idea. You may meet somebody, they may be able to introduce you to somebody, but whatever it is, think about what you want for yourself, what you're really ready for, and make sure you're doing it for you.